I stood in the shower and the Holy Spirit clearly said to me, if you don't pivot now, you're going to regret it. Literally, Shae, I'm not kidding you. It sent me into a depression where I was in my prayer closet telling God, if you don't come get me, I'm coming to meet you.
Welcome to Kingdom Over Everything. I am Shae Bynes, and I have with me the walking exclamation point. With, by the way,
Shae, we're not even getting past the intro.
when I saw you say that you've been known as a walking exclamation point, when I encountered you, I'm like, that is the level of accuracy of that.
And I can't even remember who started calling me that, but they were just like, you were just like a walking exclamation point. And I was like, yeah, I can't argue with that. I can't argue.
It's
with
so
that.
accurate. So I have with me the founder of Move-In Day Mafia, the walking exclamation point, Miss TeeJ Mercer. What's going on, TeeJ?
Hey, Shae, I'm so glad you let me come play with you over here at Kingdom Over Everything. I am so psyched. You have no idea.
It's so funny how you and how our worlds ended up colliding, because it all happened because of this little book called Grace Over
Grind that just changed the game for me. Stepped all on my toes. I was like, who in the hell is this woman that's reading my mail? And I can still tell you the exact part that got me. It was when you were talking about not resting because what you do doesn't feel like work and it's so fun. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe she is talking to me. Because at the time, I had a group of friends that were concerned that I do work around the clock. And I'm just like, no, I don't. They're like, your brain is never turned off. And then another friend had addressed concerns that I was not honoring the Sabbath. And I was like, well, I'm working on stuff God tells me to work on. But then by the time I got to reading your book, I was like, okay, maybe she's on to something and I should stop ignoring them. And it also gave me peace to not grind.
Right.
It gave me peace to go, oh, it's okay if I don't do anything but hang out with my friends on Sunday. It doesn't, it does. Oh, she's saying I can hang out with my friend. Like it was like, oh, it's okay if I don't want to do anything but just sit on the couch and hang out with my cousin. Which is I was actually physically in Los Angeles when I read the book. And so my cousin had been, like, so many people who love me had been in my ear that I would just ignore because I'm like, well, you don't understand. I got this and God is telling me I got to do this and God is telling me I got to do that. And they were like, but your brain never stops. And I just remember like being an instant shabon stalker after that. Like, what else she over there talking about? Because
your friends were looking out for you. Like, it was so funny just to see like multiple people recommending that you read this book. I saw multiple people.
And I was, and it's not that I'm hard. It's not that I'm hard headed, but and I don't take good counsel. It really was. I feel like I'm always on a mission, and if I don't, go hard in the paint like I would do in my normal career, why wouldn't I go hard in the paint with God? And then you just came and disrupted that whole mindset. And it came along at a time also where I had started getting annoyed with the hustle and the grind terms. Like, I don't want the hustle and grind. I've been there, done that, got the paperwork, got the awards, got all of it. I am 50 years old. I want some grace and ease. Like, I want
Well,
to sashay my way into, the next level.
it's really interesting because um the aspect of the grace over grind that you fully had embraced was the idea of the partnership with God.
Yes,
So you might have been overworking and working also a bit more in your own strength than you needed to because you were on a mission that you were driven by.
exactly.
At the same time, you had wholeheartedly embraced this idea that I don't have to figure out all the things, I don't have to know all the things. God leads and guides and opens doors, and I say yes and surrender to Him. That aspect
Right.
of partnership with God, you were all over that already.
Oh yeah, now that I'd had down, I had become real comfortable as in my discomfort, if you say. I'd gotten really comfortable in my discomfort by this time. And it's like, these same friends often tease me, and they're like, my cousin would be like, you can just walk up to a tree and that tree is going to speak to you and you just go move. you, and one of my editors of my first book, TeeJ Griffin, she was like, you are the walking epitome of Peter. You will just jump out the boat. Like, if God tells you, yeah, you're gonna be like, all right, I'm coming. Let me see if I
I'm
can crip
coming.
walk over the water. So
So let's explore a little bit of that because we're talking about kingdom over everything, and I think that your
yeah.
story has such a wonderful thread of you putting his his way, his mind, his heart concerning you over whatever other things were kind of going on, or even the circumstances that you see around you. And I actually
Mhm.
look forward to learning some new things about you
Mhm.
in this conversation too. So
Mhm.
let's go back because my understanding is that uh, faith background, you like your
I'm a
dad's a
preacher's
pastor?
kid. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah, you're
preacher's
a preacher
kid. So
kid.
I ain't new to this. I'm true to this. I've been in this game a long time. But it wasn't until Shae, I graduated from Howard and I was fully in my Hollywood career, loving it. And I just started hearing the voice of God more clearly. And I started really developing my own relationship. And so I started questioning a bunch of the stuff that I was raised to
Right.
believe as doctrine when it actually is just tradition.
Right.
And I started questioning everything because I'm balancing it with what God is speaking and how God is naturally, kind of wired me is not lining up with how I was raised to think and process God. And
Give me one
God is
example.
that God is something. Okay, so this is going to kind of sound contradictory.
Okay.
There was so much emphasis on God being feared than God being my dad and my friend.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
started looking at God, as my, more my relationship with my mom. My mom is one of those very few parents that she comes from that you can't be your child's friend. You got to rate. She comes from that, but that ain't what she did. My mama
Right.
was and still my buddy. Like, I get on her
Yes.
last nerve because I treat her more like she's my friend. That like she found that balance of I respected her as my mom, but that's my
Yes.
girl. And
Right.
so I started questioning, but if Jesus, is supposed to be my friend, well, I don't pray to, thee and thou and the, and, it's like, yo, dude, what are you up there doing? Are you slow clothes blinking up there? Are you not watching me suffer through this? Like, can you open your eyes? You held that blink a little too long. So, um, this
Yes.
hurts. And
Yes.
so the more that kind of relationship developed, the more, I'm sure my father still to this day is concerned that I'm going to hell. but, but at the same time, he has seen the fruit of
Yes.
my life. And then I had just come out of an abusive marriage, fought to get my house back. I was 39 years old, felt like I was starting over, Shae. And this was before Facebook was huge. And, I had 200 Facebook friends and I knew all of them.
Right.
And so I was on my way to work one day. I was working on a show called My Cat from Hell on Animal Planet. And I was on my way to work and I was thinking, this is before people had started doing it. I was just like, God, I want to post, because I come out of this traumatic experience. And I said, I just want to post a life lesson every day for 40 days.
Mm-hmm.
And being a storyteller, I always start at the end. So like when I worked on The Bachelor, you start at the end. Who's going to get the rose at the end of the episode, and then build from that. So my thinking was, what is going to be that life lesson that happens on my birthday?
Right.
And clearly, Shae, I don't think I still, to this day, clearly I heard God say, you're going to write a book. Sir, no. That is not what we're doing. I hate writing. And I'm not interested in writing a book. I've never wanted to be nobody's author, writer, nothing. I tell my story with video. And so for the next week, though, God just wouldn't let up. Like, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't. And I was just like, okay, fine. I'm going to shut you up. I'm going to write this book and we're going to be done and we're going to go on about my life. And that book ended up being downloaded almost 10,000 times in 2 days
Wow.
on 6 continents.
What?
And won 3 Beverly Hills Book Awards. And that's what disrupted my life. And I'm like, okay, so this is not what I planned. This is not what, I just thought I was going to do. You could not tell me that I would not be an editor or producer for the rest of my life, because I
Right.
loved what I did as a career. I
Yeah.
loved what I did as a career. And that's the book that changed the game. Of the first sign, I'm like, okay, I better listen to God. And because he got some plans, and I don't typically have to. My obedience to the plan don't have nothing to do with my agreement. So,
You're saying, I don't really agree with this, Lord, but I'm surrendering and I'm
if
saying,
nothing
yeah.
else, I'm gonna obey. I ain't gonna have to like it. And eventually, I'm sure maybe I'll get. But
Uh-huh.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
sometimes that's where it starts, though. It's just like, I'm surrendered to this thing. I mean, that's how I felt about speaking. I never desired to speak on anybody's stage and all of those
Mm,
things. And I didn't, and then I remember the first time that I did it outside of my corporate career, but like as a business
mm,
owner. And I was
mm,
like, wow, I actually enjoyed that. But I
mm.
never would have put it on my list of things to do. I never
Yeah,
would have
Shae, I
pulled
haven't
that.
reached that level of writing that I enjoy that. I still, to this day,
You
hate
so you
writing.
haven't so
So
that's what I was gonna ask, whether you have so you still don't enjoy writing, but you've written
no, no,
what,
no,
4
no,
books
no.
now?
See, you soften the blow. You said I still don't enjoy writing. No, I still hate writing. Let's be clear. Let's not be lying
Talk
to your
about putting
people.
kingdom over everything. You're like, "Look, I've done this once, still didn't like it. I've done this twice, I
I
still don't
still
like
didn't.
it." You just finished was that your 4th book that you just finished that I wrote the foreword for? Your
The
5th
fifth,
book.
the
So maybe
fifth.
this is, maybe this is the grace book. Maybe this
Yeah.
is maybe this is the book
No,
that
no, I
released the
hated the
grace.
whole process still. No,
He's like,
no,
"You still
Shae.
hate it."
No, no, I
But
still
you
hate
said
it.
yes, but your consistent yes, even when you didn't like what you're gonna be walking into, has been very fruitful. I mean,
That
and has led to you doing things that you do absolutely love, even though you didn't have any intent of doing it. So let's go back. Let's talk a little bit about that track. So
mhm,
you write this book, it ends up being like a bestseller.
mhm.
You get awards, and you're like, wait, huh? Like, what is really happening?
I started getting awards. I started getting invitations to speak. I started just getting exposure, and I went from 200 Facebook friends that I know to 5,000. It just was crazy. And the one thing I know about myself is my purpose is to love on God's kids. I
Mm-hmm.
do that in a variety of ways depending on the day. But even when I hate writing, that's trumped by my purpose is to love on God's kids.
Yes.
So if writing is what I have to do that, then I don't have to love it. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And seeing the reaction and the testimonies and what comes out of it, even when I finished, as much as I hated, writing, 17, 18-hour days, seeing the initial testimonies that's coming from people who have read Waiting for Suddenly, it's like, okay, yeah, that was worth it. Okay, so all
So
right, can we not do this
you're gonna
no
need a
time
master
soon
class.
though?
You need a master class with me on how to write with your Holy Ghost writer with another level of grace. Maybe we could take you from hating writing to like
No,
mildly
we good.
disliking it.
No, because I feel like if I end up having to love it,
You're
he
like,
gonna
this
give
is
me
the
more
thorn in
time.
my side.
I'm good the way it is. Like, here you go trying to change things, Shae.
You
I
are
didn't
so
ask you to
funny.
change it.
You are so funny. You're like, no, I want this pain. Let me just stick with this pain. I'm gonna love on these kids. Period.
Like,
You
I'm
are
gonna just
so
do what
funny.
I do. And when I wrote my first book, and what's crazy though, Shae, I don't think I've ever talked about this part in the interview, is when Ellen DeGeneres first came out, her very first sitcom, I was working on the TV show, and I don't mean came out as gay. I mean came
Oh,
out
that's what I thought you
and
meant.
hit,
Okay.
like I just like I need to probably clean that up. But when she first hit the scene and landed her sitcom,
Okay.
I was working on the TV show Extra and Access Hollywood. And I became an instant fan of Ellen long before, I was just an instant fan. And so when she wrote her first book, of course, I snatched it up. And reading her book, I was like, oh my gosh, it's like I'm sitting here talking to her. Like, I just love it. It was a page turner. Because I may hate writing, but I am a voracious reader. And
Right.
so I'm just eating it up. And I remember telling God, and this is where I went wrong. I told God, if I ever wrote a book, I want to write it how people can hear my voice.
Mm.
And so when I wrote 40 Days to 40, that first book, the best compliments were my readers who were like, it was just like I was sitting on the couch. I could totally hear you just talking to me. I could
Right.
totally hear. And so for me, everything that I write has to sound like I'm just having a conversation with my girl. I'm just having a
Yeah.
conversation with my boy. And so I take it, I make light of it, but I take it very serious.
Yeah.
That it's my assignment. I don't choose to write, but
Right.
because I'm honoring God, I want to be very clear that I still do it with the excellence that I can deliver.
Right.
And it's crucial for my audience, my readers, to feel like I'm the best friend that they didn't know they needed.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good.
Mm.
Okay, so then when all of that happened after that book, you're in the middle of this career that you love, and now you're
Mhm.
getting invited to speak and all of these things. So that was a divine disruption all in and of itself because you didn't
Yep.
expect that. What did that lead to you leaving your career shortly thereafter? Like what was that next point?
Girl, at the end of 2014, I heard God tell me, you're done.
Mm.
And I was like, okay,
Like done
done
with what?
with what? Because done, I don't, done with writing. I don't have to write another book. Cool, we good. And and he was like, no, you're done with this side of Hollywood.
Mm.
And so February 28th, oh my gosh, I'm just now connecting. Oh gosh. So we'll get to what connection I just made for the first time. February 28th of 2015, I edited my last show. Now here's the thing, Shae. God told me I was done, but he didn't tell me I was done to go do what.
Right.
And so I'm watching my bank account just be depleted. Wells Fargo, I'm asking God, now, did you tell Wells Fargo that we were done? Because they keep sending their mortgage requests and there's no money coming in. And slowly but surely, it just kept going down and down and down until finally I launched what's called Media Mavericks Academy. And Media
Okay.
Mavericks Academy is where I teach authors, experts, entrepreneurs, coaches how to book themselves in the media without a publicist and without being a celebrity. Now, in retrospect, Shae, and this, you were the first person getting this side of the story. In retrospect, I launched Media Mavericks because I took matters into my own hands. I
Mm.
still didn't wait because I was
So
being responsible.
that wasn't, you didn't feel like that was a God assignment. You were like, "Look, I need to go make some money because Wells Fargo's like."
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so when one of my what happened was one of my friends called and asked me, she wants to get some exposure, some media exposure for her conference. So I laid out a whole media strategy and she was like, T,
Right.
you know, you did that in 8 minutes. She said, here's what you get ready to do. You get ready to go on Facebook, announce that you're launching this new program and that I'm your new client. That's how it started. It what I cannot
Instant business owner.
say. Say what you say?
Instant business owner.
And I cannot say that, you know, when I think about it, I would describe it, Shae, as it was God's permissive will, not his
Sure.
perfect will.
Sure.
Like he allowed, because a lot of the people, the lot of the friends and everything that I have come in contact with who help me now that I got some get right and I'm back in the right lane, came from people that I met during that journey. And still a beast at it. I haven't put Media Mavericks down. It's just no longer the main thing.
Primary
It's you know.
focus.
And so I
Well, hold
had
on,
to.
because that's a testimony of how I always talk about how nothing ever gets wasted in the kingdom of God. That's an example of it where it's like, well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I didn't wait to see like why God took me out and where I was supposed to head, but look how like, all the goodness that's used in the process of you doing that in the thing that when you got aligned with, here's where God has me, and nothing got wasted.
Nothing got wasted. Everything that I learned as far as like building systems, build
Yep.
what, funnels are, all of that came from, me doing that, which is what I, lean on now and what I do, I focus on full time. And
Right.
so for that point, it's like I just got scared. I just got like, okay, well, you seem to have done a slow blink up there. You're not watching that my savings are being depleted. So I'm gonna take matters into my own hands and I'm gonna
Right.
take care of myself. And
Yeah.
so I did that probably exclusively of about 5 years, 6 years, somewhere around
Okay.
that. And it was stressful and I cannot say that it ever became profitable. It was enough. Like I had people like telling me this should be a 7 figure and I knew in my heart, Shae, I was not willing to do the work
Right.
that it would take to make it a 7 figure business.
Right. It was like
Because
you're a man of business. I'm doing this and it's bringing just enough until we
it's
figure
just
out what we're
enough
doing
to
next.
not lose my house. It's
Right.
bringing in just enough because I knew
Yeah.
I couldn't articulate it then.
Yes.
Hindsight is always 2020, and so I couldn't articulate it then. But I can, looking back now and looking at the struggle and the stress, I can honestly say I was letting what the experts tell me
Yes.
override what God had said.
Yes.
No, because they were doing their job, but I was
Yes.
frustrating them because they could see it clearly if they could just get me to get on board. And
Right.
so it felt like I was sabotaging. When I'm
Yes.
looking at it now, it's like, no, I was out of order, and my
Right.
spirit knew I was out of order.
Yes.
My
Yes.
spirit knew this ain't what God told me to do. It's what He's allowed me to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so when I look back, it was a lot of stress that, had I just got some get right sooner, um, I probably could have saved myself a lot of sleepless nights. I mean, I remember praying to God, like, help me, help you. It's like I'm praying for God to
This is
give me
hilarious.
funding, but I'm not praying for him to give me the strategy for funding, because then him giving me the strategy would mean, well, you're not supposed to be over here doing this, not on the level that I was doing it. You know,
Right.
I love helping. If you can't tell, Shae, I'm a Black woman, right? So I knew that I was the only woman that I know of with my background, my insight, that could help other Black entrepreneurs understand the inside game of getting media
Gotcha.
exposure.
Right, right,
Like I, I knew that, and so that part was important to me
right,
to open up the door and say, no, you don't have to spend $3,000 a month on a publicist. You got to just put some skin in the game and let me show you how. So that
yeah.
part was important. So I had a
It was
very
that mission-driven thing
honorable,
again. You were
yeah, it's
driven
like
by the mission.
I had an honorable,
Yes,
pursuit, because I wanted to help more, Black people who look like me understand how to get their foot in the door to media.
right.
But knowing full well, I ticked off a lot of my coach because they just couldn't understand. All you got to do is act, because I was the only one doing it. Nobody was in my lane.
Right.
And it's just like, yeah, I know I don't want to do that. And so I just wouldn't go hard in the paint.
When did it change? So you, as you would say, when did you get you some get right? Like
When did I get
what happened? What was the encounter? What was the moment that led to a shift for you?
the real shift happened sometime in 2022. So just last year.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I stood in the shower and the Holy Spirit clearly said to me, if you don't pivot now, you're going to regret it.
Wow.
And he said it in such a way that I knew, because I was already pulling against my team and trying to get them to pivot into what I knew I should be doing. But they were resistant because what I'm building, I can't really articulate it myself,
Yeah.
And so there was tension in the
Right.
ranks, because the leader is saying we got to do this, and the leader is a visionary, she's not an
Right.
implementer.
Right.
So the implementation team is like, but that don't make no darn sense,
Right.
because
They couldn't put some meat to it that
right.
they could say, now
And
let me go and do that.
why don't won't you wait to do this until this business gets
Right.
totally successful? And I'm going,
Right.
no, that's not. And it literally, Shae, I'm not kidding you. It sent me into a depression where I was in my prayer closet telling God, if you don't come get me, I'm coming to meet you. And I told him, that's how much looking in retrospect now, I can see where it was all coming from, because I
Yeah.
was so depressed from the fighting. And the thing is, nobody knew this, because I'm the walking exclamation point with a purpose of serving God's kids. So I know
Right.
how to turn on and be good enough to get through what I needed to do, and then go back and be totally depressed. And that
Wow.
particular day, I was in the closet. It was on the heels of, unfortunately, Miss USA. She died by suicide by walking off a building. And I
Oh, yes, I
remember
remember that.
I
Yes.
I was in my prayer closet negotiating, okay, I'm not going to walk off a building because that's too painful. I'm going to die with ease, And this is my real process of how I was talking to God. And then I said, and I now live in an apartment, so I don't have a garage to go, lay down in and, take myself out that way. I'm not going to go on a train track because that just sounds painful. And I was like, so the only thing I can do is take a bunch of pills. And I was like, well, you don't have nothing strong enough in the medicine cabinet. So that means you got to get up and walk across the street to the Target. And I kid you not, brace yourself. This is exactly what I told myself. I said, so but how about you just get your Black ass up and call your doctor and tell him what's going on? And so I called my doctor, and he said, "Yeah, I think it's time for you to go on some meds because this is not a good
Wow.
place for you." And
Wow.
then um a dear friend got me to LA because by this time I was in it. I was living in Atlanta. Got me back to
Right.
LA, which is
Yeah.
my home of 25 years, so that they could take care of me. Um,
Right.
and they finally knew, like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. It wasn't till I got to LA that I started realizing you're not okay because you're spiritually warring to get
Yes.
back to what God told you to do. Now, yes, I'm sure
Were
there
you
were
still
some.
doing the other business at that time too, in the midst of all this, like the depression and all this,
Yeah,
you were still doing the media stuff?
I was doing my best. Now,
Right.
doing it well, I was
Right.
doing
Right.
I was doing enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's when I first started pivoting, trying to pivot the team. And it was the first time that I used to do this thing called the Noisemaker Challenge every year to
Yeah.
be the launch to bring in new media mavericks. And that was the first time since I launched Mavericks that I didn't sell one enrollment. And we did a whole challenge, not one. That's when I knew. I'm like, then I was able to tell the team, see,
Right, see? That's what I'm saying.
see,
We dried up here. We gotta pivot.
right. And they still, weren't on board with it. And then fast forward, I came back to Atlanta. I got, much better, and knew that it was time for me to start, really pivoting. But I was still trying to hear what they were saying, put energy over here. And that day in the shower, the Holy Spirit was like, if you don't pivot, you're going to regret it.
Wow.
And that was the day that I had to let the whole team go.
Wow.
And it was just me. And it was the most rewarding, freeing feeling because
Yeah.
I
Because
made a
now you don't at
difference.
least have the tension of having to bridge the gap between the vision and the implementation. You don't have to
And
convince
I don't
anybody
have
of anything.
payroll. So once I fed myself, my whole family was fed. so uh,
Right down to the absolute practicality of it all.
exactly. Like I could eat some Vienna sausage and some crackers. I'm good. Long as I can pay my rent, I can do whatever I need to do. Go to Magic City, get on the pole, whatever I need to do. I can, I should be good. But I told God, I was like, if you don't come through, it won't be because I didn't get right. I was like, I will go and move back home with my mama, building this thing that you're telling me to build. The rest is up to you. Now I
Right.
know I strayed and got out of alignment for
Yes.
years, but
Yes.
I got it now. Let's roll. And Shae, when I tell you, stuff just started happening.
Wait, before you talk about the stuff that started happening, hold on. I want to slow down for a second. So I'm thinking about your divine design, right? And how I'm seeing as other thread of your life in terms of like how you get driven by a mission, like how you can get really excited around the purpose
Mhm.
of the thing being in the, being driven by that in many respects, which is how you were able to continue to do certain things even though you're out of that alignment. But
Mhm.
because ultimately that is your wiring, the fact that you weren't connected to that very thing became like dying for you.
Yeah,
It was like death. It was like
it
a slow
was.
death.
It absolutely was. And I knew that if I didn't get back on stage, if I didn't start speaking, because that's how I connect with people. And if I didn't start hugging people, I have a
I get that
ministry,
part.
and a divine ministry of hugging. I am the world's greatest hugger, not because of me, but because it literally was downloaded
Yes.
into me.
Yes.
And I'm not able to do any of that. And it was just crushing. I am not fully TJ if TJ isn't loving on God's kids.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
fully TJ if I'm not doing interviews, going live, making people laugh. I'm just not fooling me. So that's depressing
Right.
because I'm
Wow.
just, I'm wired to operate like that. I
Yes.
need people. I
Yes.
need people.
Yeah. So good. Okay. So, all right. So now you said, all right, Lord, it's up to you to like work this thing out. You got my yes. I'm all in. I have fired my team. I'm all in on this thing. Tell me at that time, how would you have been able to, or I guess in retrospect, what was the vision you were carrying at that time? Like, what could you see
So let's
at
go
that
back.
moment?
So to understand that, we got to go back to 29 end of 2019.
Okay.
And I had gotten permission from God. I got a text in about September, October, from an old producer, a show called Homemade Simple on OWN. It's the show that we won an Emmy for. And he
Mm-hmm.
sent me a text and said, it's Homemade Simple's last season, and we have a chair here for you if it serves your purposes. Now, I have never worked in corporate, so I can't talk about corporate, but in television, don't nobody care if it serves your purposes. So that kind of paused me, like,
Like, this is
that's
unusual.
this is interesting. And I was like, God, okay, I'm gonna lean into this. Is this something I would love to go back and do this, but only if you were giving me permission? And I got my yes, go back and do it. And so I went back to this show, and it's when God changed the game and said, it was like a comma to what he had said in 2014. And he just
Right.
comma, pause,
Yes.
2019, your time in LA is done.
Mm.
And I was just like, hold up. What do you mean my time in LA? I love LA. I don't want to leave LA. And by this time, Shae, he had given me concepts for HBCU TV shows.
Yes. For those
So
who don't know, historically Black colleges and
Black colleges
universities.
and universities.
Yeah.
So he had given, because I am a proud graduate of the Howard University. And so he had given me concepts of those, things. And I was like, but how are you going to move me to Atlanta when I'm supposed to do these TV shows? Hollywood is here. My community is here. Wouldn't it be easier? And I realize in retrospect of telling God, would it be easier? I sound really stupid now, but wouldn't it be easier on you to leave
Let
me
me
here?
help you.
There's my help me help you. So, like, so I don't understand this. And I went to my therapist, who doubles as a prophet too. And out the blue, Shae, she goes, "You're not gonna like what I'm getting ready to tell you." I'm like, okay. She goes, "God says that you have to get ready to leave because he's moving you to Atlanta at the top of the year." I got up, and if I could have been the Tasmanian devil and tore that whole room up, I would have. I just started walking around the room fast, like, you have got to be kidding me, because I hadn't told
Right.
anybody. And so she confirms it. Then I'm still trying to process it, Shae. And I get a call from my girl Tish, who was living in Atlanta at the time. She calls me and says, "TeeJ, God just told me that I'm supposed to come to LA and stay with you to help you pack up your house because he's moving you." And I was just like, you know what?
He's like, in case you didn't catch it the first time or
And
the
it was
second,
one
I
of the
got
things like,
you.
look, girl, I am not playing with you.
One
Like,
for the father. He like, one for me, and one for me.
and so I finally, surrendered, like, okay, I guess I gotta leave LA. And on February 28th, the same day,
I still
my
had that
last,
open. I was waiting for that. Yes.
yep, on February 28th, was my last day of editing. February 28th was my last day in LA.
Wow.
On March 1st, me and my mom drove across country to Atlanta of 2020, got here. I went to a Martin Lawrence comedy concert, and 2 days later, the world goes on lockdown.
Right.
What in the entire hell?
You're like, this was supposed to be a heavenly strategy, but it's feeling kind of hellish right now.
And I was hot, Shae.
Yeah.
I was trying, like a kid. Like,
Yeah.
I know I can't disrespect my parent, but if I could get away with cussing you out without you knowing, I would. Like, dude, you
Yeah.
had me sell my house. You threw me out of a city where my community is to put me in a city where I knew nobody. You know I'm an extrovert. I can't go nowhere. I can't do any. Wait a minute. You knew all of this.
Right.
All right,
Right.
so what are you trying to tell me? What
Yes.
what are you wanting me to do? My time between being appalled and getting some get right has gotten smaller. So I,
Yes.
I, I arrived at this place a little quicker, going, okay, hold on. Now, one thing I want to tell you, Shae, is that window of time of me going back and doing that show
Yep.
is the exact window of time that my apartment here needed to show proof of consistent income.
Oh, wow.
I was like, and so that's why I'm just like, God, I can't be mad at you because you brought
He
this
says,
to
I
me.
am
No,
Jehovah Jireh, the one who sees,
exactly.
the one
Like
who
when
goes
they asked
before
for
and makes
two
provision.
months, we need to see 2 months of your bank statements. I'm like, that's 2 months of every week they're seeing I
Yes.
have income.
That's right.
God, you kind of do that whole omnipotent thing. They
Like,
own to
you
something when
really
they
work this
call
thing
you that.
out. You really work this thing out.
And so I went into my job is to love on God's kids. What is it, God, that you want me to do? So the
Yes.
first thing I did was I created story time with Auntie TeeJ, where I would go live every weekday and read to kids. And it because at that time, parents were scrambling. They don't know what they doing. They,
Right.
they're at home with their kids. And I'm like, for at least 30 minutes a day, they can go take a shower. They can
Yeah.
sit their kid. And so I read to kids. That was the first thing. And then my family got together and did a virtual bingo game. And so when we played that game, again, I'm solution driven of how do I bring joy to his kids.
Right.
I'm going, okay, I know that I have a community of people who are lonely like me. So let
Yes.
me bring those people together. So that night I stayed up all night. And again, like you said, ain't nothing wasted. And I built the whole system. How did I know how to build the system? I had done Media Mavericks. So I knew about the funnel. I knew about the red. And I'm the whole night, I'm staying up till 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going, I am not getting paid for this. Why am I working so hard to make this perfect and to make it an experience? And looking at what the autoresponder, how do they get their bingo card? Like, I'm building this whole system. And I went to bed at 3 and I just put a crappy graphic out there. Listen, anybody who wants to play bingo with me on Saturday, go here. Here's the details, register. By the time I thought I was going to get like 10 people, by the time I got up, like 75 people had registered. I was like, okay. And so I was only going to play one Saturday, $100, $10 a game, because it was just supposed to be something that,
Fun thing with friends.
fun thing with friends, or, help people get through it. And I'm getting emotional because I'm like, I just remember being so angry with God,
Yeah.
but looking at what he allowed us to do through that
Yeah.
season.
Yes.
And we ended up playing Shae bingo for 6 Saturdays. And I had given away almost $10,000 worth of cash and prizes because more people kept joining. And right around this time, graduations were being canceled.
Right.
And once again, I went to God, like, how can I help? I don't know what possibly I can do, But being a graduate of an HBCU, my heart was breaking for these first gen students
Yes.
who, I knew what graduations at an HBCU is like. And for them not to have that celebratory moment. And so I asked God, what do you want me to do? And I only way I could interpret it was, oh, you thought the bingo was the main thing. You're going to do an HBCU bingo. Wait, what? Like, first of all, what is that? I don't even know what that is. And that's not the kind of plan that I was thinking. Can't you come up with something else? And yet, and then I put it back on. I was like, okay, now if this is really you, show me how to raise $100,000 for these kids.
Okay.
God was like, hold my beer.
My girl said, God said,
And
hold my beer.
in less than 4 weeks, Shae, we raised over 1 million in cash and
Wow.
prizes. And we
Wow.
gave it away in a series of virtual bingo games that I produced just like my TV shows. And over 500 HBCU grads benefited. They got $1,500 worth of prizes just for registering. They didn't have to show up. We
Wow.
had celebrity pop-ins. It was epic. It
You know
it
what's
was epic.
you know what's so interesting to me as I'm listening to you is how it started with your heart. You're like, my purpose is to bring joy to people. I want to do something to help. It started there. It's like you didn't have like a specific God idea. It was just like, I desire to serve people. Like, I mean, I'm here. Like, what can I do? It starts there. Then he uses the thing that's on your heart to do to then tie it to like his
Together.
idea. So it was your idea. Well, you're thinking
And
this is my
I
idea.
tried to give the bingo game away.
You're
I
like, we're
built
trying
the
to do.
whole I built the whole system and tried to give it to my cousin and was like, because she really wanted to do it. And so I was like, here, the whole system, go do it.
You're
And
just
for
thinking, I'm just
whatever
doing this.
reason,
Yeah, I'm just trying to
she
help.
didn't want to do it.
I'm just trying to love the people. That's it.
That was
Here.
all I was supposed to do.
And
And
then
Shae,
God's like, now I got something for you.
what was really touching is then during that holiday season, we did holiday bingo for the masses. And we had people playing with us from around the world
Wow.
who were staying up to 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And I still get lovely messages from parents and people from around the world for that season of putting together something that got them through, some of the worst parts of their lives.
Yes.
Um, and so, like I said earlier, my get right window has closed exponentially. And
Yes.
then out of that, when we got so much media coverage for the bingo, that when CBS News with Nora O'Donnell did an interview with us, they interviewed one of my grads. And I found out she was a student out of foster care who got accepted to an HBCU. And when she went to school, her social worker picked her up from campus. Picked her up, drove her to campus, let her unload her stuff on the curb, and then just left her. And that broke my heart. So once again, I went back to God. It's like, what can I do?
I want to love on your kids.
No student should ever, that was not my story. And I had never thought about this demographic of students anyway, the foster care, students. And his answer to that was Move-In Day Mafia. And Move-In Day Mafia is now a initiative of the bigger nonprofit called Project Dreamlight. But in 52 days last year, 2022, we moved in. We built Move-In Day Mafia in 52 days, and we moved in 13 students at Paul Quinn College in Dallas. This year, 2023, we moved in 31 students at 5 HBCUs. And so I said all of that to say that day the Holy Spirit told me, if you don't pivot, you're going
Yes.
to regret it.
Yes.
He meant that.
Yes.
Because shortly after that, also, I started having conversations with my dream sponsor, Samsung. They reached out to me about 2 weeks after I had released the whole team. And
Right.
that led to us having conversations to officially, after 10 years of declaring on Facebook, using the hashtag Samsung is my sponsor. They just don't know it yet. 10 years, 10 years of faithfully using that hashtag. Samsung officially became my sponsor while I was moving kids in at Paul Quinn.
Come on. The level of orchestration going on is just so beautiful. Just step by
God
step.
knows one thing about me is I love planning surprises. I love receiving surprises.
Yes.
So one thing I know for sure about my God, he goes out of his way to surprise me. He knows I love the intricacies of tracing his hand. Like,
Yes.
had I not done this, or because you told me to go here, I obeyed. I met this person who then led me to this. Like, when I can trace his hand over an intricate surprise, like
Yes.
Best Buy is my favorite store. 2 weeks before Samsung, I get a call that Best Buy is officially my sponsor. 10 years in the making.
10 years.
10 years. You can find the hashtag either Best Buy is my sponsor, they just don't know it yet, or Samsung is my sponsor, they just don't know it yet. I use that thing for 10
Which
years.
is
I
actually really
knew.
kind of wild that you were talking about that hashtag. Like, this is well before you were doing this stuff. You were
I
off
didn't have
doing
a
other
clue, Shae.
stuff.
I didn't know what I wanted them to
Right.
sponsor.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's so funny. I'm like,
I just knew. And that's the one thing, and I tell people, that's the one thing that I can honestly say I never doubted. Like, I never doubted. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. I just knew God was going to give me my heart's desire. I just knew it. I knew it with every fiber of my being. People, were telling me, well, TeeJ, you won't even tag them. I don't have to, because I want to see God do what only God can do. I don't have to have a strategy around this. I don't want to make it happen. It's just something that I want God to do for me. That's it. I just want him to do it. I want him to do it because then I can tell people, God did this. Look, y'all.
listen, that's there's a handful of things that I've discovered that we have in common. So I have a hug ministry too. I'm gonna have to get a hug from the world's greatest hugger. So I'm gonna have to do that. Second is the storytelling element that we both share. And here's the thing, because we have such a love for telling stories and we have a love for God, our motivation around telling stories is to tell stories about the goodness of God.
Of
And so
God.
because of that, he uses that aspect of our DNA.
Yep.
It's like, so I'm going to meet you at like, I built you like that. You love to tell a story. Let me give you a story to tell. I'm going to keep giving you stories to tell. He will consistently forever give you stories to tell. That will
I
speak of his
love
goodness.
that. I love that. As much as I hate writing, there's nothing I love more of taking to social media and be like, y'all ain't not gonna believe this.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what God did now.
I love that. I love that. So, okay, so before we close, because I did share on the front end that, so you just wrote your fifth book. I was delighted to write the foreword for it, which is a whole another funny God story.
That's a whole other.
That's a whole God story on how I ended up in like a 72-hour notice time.
And that I didn't ask you to do. I was too afraid to ask you. God had told me when he told me to write the book, he said, ask Shae. And I'm like, I'm not asking Shae. I don't know her like that. To then go, Shae, can you write the foreword? And then can you write it in 2 days? Like, I ain't asking. So I just ignored it. I just pretended like I didn't hear him. And lo and behold, you came into my inbox. That's what I'm saying. I love that, sharing that about God. Like, okay, you ain't gonna do it, but I still want it done. So let me now nudge Shae to
Right.
the, and I just,
You're talking about this book. I'm like, hey, I see you got a book you're writing. Love that. Love that. And then you're like, wow. I'm like, I'm
I
looking
was like,
forward.
oh my gosh, Shae, I was supposed to ask you to write the forward. And you were like, oh, okay. And I said, but it got to be done in like the next 72 hours. Okay, well, send me the book by this time. And then I was just like, wait, what?
And I was sure to let you know this is a God thing. Normally, it would be 6 weeks notice
Right.
and a maybe. But this was a yes and yes in 3 days.
Yeah,
Because
it
God
was
does stuff.
only God, only because I was too afraid to ask. So I just ignored God and pretended I didn't hear that. So I just
I just love just I just love every aspect of this. It's so good. And the thing that's so wild about it is that you're also just getting started. So here
yeah.
we've told a story that has had a trajectory of well over a decade here, and that vision that you had in whatever year that was, maybe 2019 or something like that, and then that alignment, then going through that awful season of like depression, all of those things, to come into alignment with that dream and that vision that has been simmering right there in your heart. You're just
Mm,
now getting started. I mean, you did
I'm just
2
now.
years, and the amount of
Yeah.
goodness that has
And
taken
I gotta be honest. I gotta say, I love Atlanta. All that kicking and screaming that I was doing, I
and
was
now you
like,
love it there.
oh, I love
See, this is
Atlanta.
why I have hope that perhaps, like, you'll love writing at some point. You see how I keep coming back to it, that I won't let it go?
Yeah, I'm thinking
This
five books though, Shae. 5 books, and I still haven't arrived at that
No,
point.
I still
I
listen,
mean, but you know,
you hashtagged something for 10 years with no connection point of what it was even attached to. So, to me, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep sharing this seed, because it would be just really I want for you to
why is
actually
that so
experience.
important to you for me to love writing though?
I want you
Why? Why?
probably don't wanna know the answer to that question. You probably don't
Because
want to know the answer to that question, but I do. That is the desire of my heart for you, that you will actually establish a joy, a true a joy that transcends the result of your writing, and a joy in the process of doing the thing you love to do, which is tell stories and to write that with your Holy Ghost writer. So, amen and amen.
mm,
You don't
amen,
have,
amen.
you can make whatever face you want. You can make whatever face you want, but I'm going on record. It's documented. It's documented. So maybe 10 years later we can tell this story, about
That's
on my
hilarious.
20th book, Shae. Remember that time we talked? And boy, I don't know why I took 20 books, but glory to God.
Finally, Shae, I can say I loved writing this book. Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
I've learned enough to say, God can do anything.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just, yeah,
That's
yeah.
it. That's
Okay.
it. And then the last thing I want to share also is that I also saw that you're 'cause this was connected. I learned a little bit more about that's connected to the book, is that now you're actually even helping, like, creating community around this idea of, like, let's be audacious, like, let's say yes to God, let's surrender to God,
Yeah.
let's walk this out, let's see the trajectories for you guys be even shorter than mine,
Mhm.
let's collapse some time and get with God
Mhm.
on this thing. And so I'm excited to see how the League of Water Walkers,
The League of
and your
Extraordinary Water Walkers.
League of
Yeah.
Extraordinary Water Walkers.
God gave me that assignment before waiting for suddenly. He had given me League of Extraordinary Water Walkers because the assignment was to go get my kids. They need to
Yes.
know how you do what you do. You walk in miracles. You wake
Yes.
up waiting for God to surprise you. And
Yes.
so my knee jerk was reaction, well, who qualified to do that? Why you want me to do that? And all God said was, duh. And I had to go back and look, oh, okay, I can kind of see. And so we launched League of Extraordinary Water Walkers. It was supposed to be just a 6-week study with me. And, but that's all, that's always what God do. I'm just give you enough to get started and get
Yep.
rolling and trust. Now, League of Extraordinary Water Walkers is a full blown membership. We're meeting twice a month. And it's just a place where do-gooders, we're do-gooders,
Yes.
and we're do-gooders who want to shift the atmosphere of our industries.
Yes.
And we want to come together. It's a place where the unicorns can come together and meet up and get encouragement, inspiration, power, ideas from one another to go out and expect miracles in
Yes.
our different spheres of industry.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about where God is doing and taking that, and looking forward to the domino effect
Yes.
of, the water walkers who are with me now taking that, and how that's a domino in their corporate space, how
That's
that's a
right.
domino in their ministry. So
Yes.
uh
It's a
it's been
beautiful
a
thing.
journey. It's been a fun
It
journey.
has. But there's so many things. It started with the seed, you did it,
Mhm.
and then God's like, "Oh, and by the way, here's what I really had in mind." It's the power of the yes. It's the power of the yes, taking a step at a time, and the momentum that builds from that alignment. I mean, that your
Yeah.
story is a testimony of that over and over and over again. Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you are receiving more revelation of grace over grind in your do gooding, as you're multiplying do gooders in the community, so that they can do good by the power of God's grace, so they can do it in
Mhm.
his rest and experience their miracles without breaking their backs. Like, 'cause that don't even make
Oh, I
sense.
like
You
that.
break break my back for a miracle.
Mhm.
I don't have to
Exactly.
strive for the miracle. So
Like, I'm loving that, I want them to get excited about receiving and participating, because I love participate. I love
yes,
hearing when last thing I'll say is, I decided a long time ago that I don't want a eulogy, official eulogy at my funeral. I want just people standing up and finishing the sentence stem. I'm so thankful for TJ's life, because God used her too. And just, how did he use me in your life? That is the ultimate. I feel like a servant well done.
yeah,
Like, that's exactly what I want, is just to be somebody's answered prayer. A
yeah,
sap is what
yeah,
I call us. Um and so I can't wait to see what the water walkers who feel the same way, who want to be used by God,
yeah.
to go out there and participate and be used in the miracles.
I love it. That's so good. TJ, thank you for joining me today. Like, where folks want to connect with you, where do you want to send them? First, share what you want
Uh,
to share.
I'm TeeJ Mercer all over the place. For a limited time, you can get Waiting for Suddenly completely free, waitingforsuddenly.com. And if the mission of Move-In Day Mafia resonates with you, we need money, because it costs a whole bunch of money. It's $1,700 per student to move these kids in. We give them monthly care packages as well, because we walk with them for 4 years. So we could definitely use your tax deductible donation at moveinddaymafia.org. But if you want to just hit me up at TeeJ Mercer everywhere, you can start there. But yeah, go get waitingforsuddenly.com. Go get it for free while it is free,
While
as
it
my
is free,
gift.
and if you're listening to it and it's not free, go ahead and get it. Even when it wasn't free, go ahead and get it.
Yeah.
It'll bless you. TJ, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It's been a joy.
Shae, hug yourself for me.